Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Plutonium Show.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Boy, Colombia, huh?
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is going to be good.
Yes, it is. I mean, yet another fake royal tour for the royals, or ex-royals, I should say, who quit because they didn't want to do any of that stuffs.
Man, imagine begging for your job so much that you pretend to do it.
What was the point of quitting?
No point whatsoever.
There is a difference. I'll tell you what it is. The key lies in what Meghan said in her Australia tour, allegedly, as reported by Valentine Lowe. I can't believe I'm not getting paid for this. That's what she said. Allegedly. Excuse me. The difference now being, I mean, I can't say for certain, but it looks like they're getting paid for this.
Meghan's the sort of person who would consider clout as payment. So, you know, there is a chance that there might not be money exchanged there besides, you know, the complimentary hotel and flights. But
complimentary hotel and flights and security.
Oh,
we'll get to that. There is apparently an exorbitant bill. I mean, of course there would be. Wait till we show you the photos of the security that these two have had in those short 4 days.
And who's paying for it?
Exactly. We'll get to that. So, how it came to be. Apparently, and this will be reflected in the title, I hope, the vice president of Colombia, Francia Marquez, is a fangirl. She's a Sussex fangirl who, by her own words, her own admission, watched Meghan and Harry's Netflix show and thought, you know what? Meghan seems like she's a really great asset to women all over the world. And she invited her.
Oh, I would equate that to watching Natalie Portman in the first Star Wars movie and going, she'd make a great queen. What on earth? That Netflix documentary, for all intents and purposes, was fictional, right? And even if there was some truth hidden in there, because obviously if you want to make a lie seem better, you know, sprinkle a little bit of truth in there. It's still a documentary. It's like a mockumentary. A mockumentary, but I'm thinking like a drama documentary.
A reality show.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you took that and you didn't see past the fact that, like, I mean, it's already bad enough when Netflix is involved, right? They don't have the best reputation for quality as it is. And then there are so many holes in that.
It's like watching the Kardashians and going, you know what? That's, the Keeping Up with the Kardashians. That's something, their lives, and just assuming it's all real and forming judgments and opinions based on that. It's ridiculous, especially for a woman her age. But also, when you look at her background, which I very briefly did, I didn't really go deep into it. It kind of makes sense. You know, birds of a corrupt feather comes to mind, flock together, because she has a compelling backstory in the sense that she really has a rags to riches story.
Right.
She used to be a maid, really poor, single mother, and she worked her way up to becoming now vice president. Mm-hmm. So that sounds, very impressive. But the problem is, like every other politician, she had apparently, according to her people, made a lot of empty promises, especially concerning women.
I mean, there's no other way to be a politician, right?
Exactly.
You have to make empty promises.
Exactly. And now, instead of helping people as she said she would, she is being accused of being really corrupt. I'm saying, really using up taxpayer money for frivolous things, unnecessary things, like using a helicopter like taxis, which she says she has to do for her own safety, spending millions of dollars on a new home where she lives instead of the official vice president's residence, which is already, accounted for in the budget.
Yes.
So she's not exactly, she doesn't have a clean bill either.
And look, no politician is going to. In fact, no human's going to ever have a clean bill, right?
Yeah.
But especially when you want, like, this just adds to the list even. It's like, oh, okay, she said she stood up for women, and then she invited Meghan Markle.
She sounds like Meghan Markle.
Exactly. She's like, that is a strike against you. You want to do things for women, you don't invite Meghan Markle.
Exactly. But that's what I mean. the fact that she saw the Netflix series and thought well of her when Meghan really came across horribly in that mockumentary. That's the irony of it all.
Yep.
Even though it was a reality show and it was all fake, her selfishness and every single bad quality about her being out of touch with reality and her entitlement and her martyrdom and her self-victimization and her everything, that came across in droves. And she still liked her. What does that tell you?
Tells me that they have a lot in common.
There was some kinship there.
Yep.
So that's how it came about, apparently. Now, some people are saying, are Meghan and Harry useful idiots that this vice president is using to distract from the plight of Colombia? Because Colombia is not doing very well.
In fact, you just brought attention to that. So, no, that's not going to work, is it?
But that's what she thought, probably. That's what political commentators are saying, especially Colombians who are living in the country right now, going through it. We'll get through some stats. And they just see this as a distraction.
Yep.
But she didn't do her research, because little does she know that Meghan and Harry have the reverse Midas touch.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a distraction. It's a magnifying glass that's going to really amplify everything wrong with the vice president and the country.
Yes. Meghan is not the person you invite when you want credibility or morale or even just an ethical approach. Meghan is who you invite when you literally can't invite anyone else. And even then, it's better to have no one show up than Meghan.
I would say so. That's what a lot of people are saying actually about Meghan's involvement in the Democratic Party, like Kamala Harris's campaign. People are saying, Meghan, it's best you don't show up.
Yeah.
Because you'll just destroy the campaign, which, by the way, I'm not American. We're not involved in your politics. I'm just saying
in on this.
Yeah, saying that Meghan has been literally, the news have been saying, just don't show up because you're just bad luck.
Exactly. Name any candidate, any person running for president, any person running for mayor.
For anything.
For anything. Literally any person who wants to do something that requires a public presence, and you invite Meghan, and you've just lost.
Pretty much. All right. So we've talked about how this trip came about. Now, what's the point? Other than the obvious, moolah, free, expenses paid, exorbitant, extravagant rather, holiday. We know that. But the official point is to strengthen the ties between the UK and Colombia, as well as to support humanitarian projects in the region. We can split this in two. First of all, they are not representing the UK or the royal family or the Commonwealth for that matter.
Exactly my first point, because last time I checked, representing a country required that the people on the streets didn't boo you out.
But not just that, it requires some kind of official diplomatic role.
Yeah.
Like you're an ambassador appointed by the government.
Maybe you're a part of that country in some way. Maybe you, live in that country. That would be handy, wouldn't it? Not in LA or California or wherever they want to move.
Yeah, and they've completely, they've quit. And not only have they quit, they have made it their mission to become enemies of the UK and the royal family. So that is absolute BS. Whoever wrote that official press release either hasn't done their research or they're playing Meghan's game of being, willfully ignorant and being defiant.
Or they think that whatever they say will override whatever the public opinion is, which last time I checked, people have brains and people can think for themselves. And this isn't some sort of dictatorship where you have to just believe whatever you read in a tabloid because, the government's going to come knocking on your door if you don't. No, that's not how that works. You say whatever you want, but if it's BS, people will call you out on it.
Absolutely. And as for the supporting humanitarian projects in the region, I mean, do these people not know that Harry, because we talk about Meghan a lot, Harry is or was president or on the board of, African parks, and the atrocities that have been happening to indigenous people, the Baka, have still, as far as I'm aware, not been resolved. And Prince Harry in particular has just pawned it off to someone else. So what humanitarian projects? He can't even take care of stuff that he has authority over.
Yep.
Let alone the issues going on in Colombia. And Meghan, got a whole video called the humanitarian about that.
The first thing I thought about.
I mean, didn't we say this in other videos and podcasts? Humanitarianism starts at home. It
does. It really does. And I don't think she's been a humanitarian to the people of the UK, the people of the US, basically
her family.
Her own family. The the people of Malta because she pretended to be Maltese.
Yeah.
Everywhere Meghan goes, humanitarianism is sucked out of the room, out of the vicinity. She is the complete opposite in every way.
Her version of humanitarianism is using people, usually children, impoverished or disadvantaged children, as props.
Yep.
Like she did when she was trying to ensnare Harry, and she went to Rwanda and she took photos with kids, that typical white savior thing that celebrities do, some celebrities. And we're just seeing this play out again and again. I've seen so many photos from this trip where they visit schools and they're putting other people's children, minor, very small children, on display in public, using them, capitalizing on them for their own image, their own PR. It's disgusting. And especially when you consider they're so, they pretend to be such advocates of childhood safety and privacy, and they keep their own kids locked away.
Yeah, but then let me exploit your kids.
Yep.
That is such hypocrisy, but it just ties into Meghan's dogma, Meghan's beliefs. Meghan worships Meghan. Meghan believes in Meghan. Meghan. Megan.
Yep.
That's all that she does.
And Harry's a disciple.
Yep.
Because honestly, looking at Harry, he is complicit, obviously, but he really, as the years go on, he really is just playing a supporting role.
Yep.
Even more and more. He just, to begin with, they were both at the forefront, and now he's really just regressed,
I mean, he's barely allowed to talk, isn't he? Lest she pull on the leash around his neck, right?
Well, what's funny is there's this video, it has no audio, of Meghan talking to a bunch of kids, and her neck is so strained, as it always is, really. She's always clenching something. And I think Harry was talking first, and so she cuts him off, and the look he gives her. As I'm talking, hopefully it's playing on the screen, or I've already played it. Such disdain. I'm not saying it's really what he's feeling. I don't know what the man's feeling, but his... they say a picture says 1,000 words.
Yeah.
And it's all over his face. And it's not the first time. Even in that interview we covered 2 weeks ago with our last podcast, the CBS Sunday morning interview.
Yeah.
He was just done. He was clocked out. Anytime she spoke, he wasn't even looking at her. Even when her alleged, apparent suicidal tendencies came up, he didn't even reach out to comfort her or hold her, because it was a dark moment in both of their lives.
Yeah, which is another thing too, because he's had PR training. So even if you're, lying about that sort of stuff, you still do that to sell the lie, right?
Well, he's not an actor, to be fair, but there was no reaction from him. When she brought up, when the interviewer brought it up, Harry just sat there, straight-faced. You know what I mean?
Yep, here she goes again.
It was just bizarre. So you see a lot of that playing out in this trip as well. He seemed a lot more animated talking to other people. Mm-hmm. He just comes alive when other people are there and he talks to them.
Yeah.
So, it's all about the image. It's all about the PR, and that's what they're packaging as humanitarianism. Before we get to the itinerary and just, briefly discuss what they did, because we kind of already touched upon some things like using people's children as props. But I really want to get to the safety and poverty aspects of Colombia, including who paid for this trip. To begin with, we all know Harry's spiel of the UK is too dangerous. I can't go there. My wife can't go there. My kids certainly won't be going there. And even now, he has his uncle from his mother's side who died, Lord Fellows, and he apparently is not going to the funeral because the UK is too dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know. It came from Harry's mouth. I'm doubting every word he says.
Well, I'm not, because he's petty enough to miss his uncle's funeral just to prove his point when, with the case he's still fighting, that he's appealed for 24/7 unconditional security from Ravek.
Yeah, and just to clarify here, if he does step foot in the UK, there is going to be some sort of protection. It's not as if he's rocking up as a civilian and no one's going to look at him.
It's decided on a case-by-case basis if it's going to come from the Home Office, like from the government.
Yeah.
If it's his own personal security, which he has 24/7, but the difference is he has to pay for it,
right,
then of course he has it. Every time he's gone to the UK, he's had it. He's also had the government protection because when he goes to royal events, such as the coronation, he automatically gets included.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. There has to be something there. So basically we have 3 avenues for security, right? We've got the Home Office, we've got his personal security, we've got the automatic security that's applied. So,
So they're both the same.
oh, they're both
Yeah.
the same. Right. So basically, if he really wanted to go, he could go.
Zach, this is all a ploy.
Yeah.
It's an act. Of
Yeah.
course he can go. He went to the Invictus 10th year anniversary thing in May, I believe. He can go whenever he wants.
Yep. So he's lying out of his teeth.
Absolutely. All in an attempt to get the ultimate, number one, free security wherever they go.
Yep.
But most importantly, IPP status, so that they can get access to intelligence, so that every single country they visit, they get what they got in Colombia without, it being conditional or, without pending an invitation. Everywhere they go, if they come to Australia, you and I are paying.
Yep.
Just like we paid without knowing in 2018 for their visit.
Yep. Is that where our taxpayers' money is going?
So
Not happy about that.
Yeah. And that's what this is all about. But it shows you just how unintelligent, how poorly thought out everything they do is. Because like Nigeria, which in my solo video where I talked about that trip, I highlighted the safety ranking of Nigeria. And just, it wasn't a safe climate.
Nope.
They still went, and now we're seeing this happen all over again in Colombia. So Colombia is ranked. I'm going to put an image. I don't know what I'm trying to say on the screen for everyone to see Colombia's standing. And this is according to the Global Peace Index 2024. It is ranked in terms of safety 146 out of 163.
That's a little bit low. Just a little bit.
If you can see all the bars in the bottom, just telling you, perceived criminality in society, homicides, full bar, 5 out of 5, violent demonstrations. This is what I mean. Are they seriously going to stand there in a court of law and argue that the UK is too dangerous? And I'm not saying the UK doesn't have its problems. Of course it has. We all know.
Every country does.
Yeah, we all know about the stabbings.
Yep.
We know. But to argue that places like Colombia and Nigeria are safer for them to visit while they can't go back to the UK is an absolute joke.
Absolutely.
As for poverty, now, of course, that becomes relevant when you ask the question of who's paying for all this.
Mm-hmm.
According to the Daily Mail, and there are photos, Harry and Meghan have had 3,000 police, snipers, and a bioterror van follow them every step of the way, despite barely anyone turning up to see them.
I love that so much. Oh my gosh, no one turning up. I don't love the amount of security they have, but no one turning up. My
Just
goodness.
look at these images. This is really full on, and this is absolutely, look, it's absolutely funded by the state, meaning the taxpayer.
You mean Colombia pays for Meghan and Harry to be safe somewhere that no one turns up, yet as we've just seen by the safety rating, there are clearly other problems that require security.
Colombia is paying for Meghan and Harry to have a holiday.
Yes.
That is it.
Spot on.
Full stop. Meanwhile, the people of Colombia are really struggling. I've got some stats. I'm not sure if they're completely accurate in terms of 2024, but you can get an idea. So 13.8% of Colombians, approximately 6.9 million people, are living on less than $2.15 a day. Okay? These people are in a position where they literally have to choose between eating or sending their children to school. And over 36% of the population continue to live in poverty in Colombia. And the figure increases to 45% in rural areas.
So by Meghan and Harry rocking up to Colombia and demanding this much security, they have done the complete opposite for the people of Colombia, as she would claim. She is an anti-humanitarian in this case, because all of that taxpayer money should have gone to the people.
And it's not just the money. These people are living in really dangerous situations with illegal groups and terrorism. As we saw, homicide is full gauge, 5 out of 5. It is incredibly unsafe. The police should be doing their job, looking after their people, their citizens, their children. And instead, they're following around these two privileged, spoiled brats, fake wannabe royals for 4 days who have their own security. They can pay for it. They are multimillionaires.
Yep, they got the money.
Someone make sense of this. I mean, shame on the vice president. Shame on you. This is actually incredibly upsetting.
It is, because there are currently people starving now because Meghan decided to show up somewhere.
Yeah.
There are people out there who may not survive the day because the security that was sent for Harry and Meghan should have been in a different spot, should have been in a different place, right? And they weren't there to prevent a potential crime.
Yeah.
There are everyone in Colombia, I would say, is suffering for this. Everyone.
Well, they're all paying for it.
Yep.
And they're not happy. I was trying to find some kind of figure, an estimate of what this is going to cost. And I found on Twitter, there was a tweet that was posted in both Spanish and English, which tells me that, and it's on the screen, that this has cost more than $2 million in escorts, hotels, events, trucks, policemen, restaurants, private flights.
Maybe we should advertise this to the people of Colombia. Maybe that should be on their billboards around their streets. Maybe some advertising could actually do some good in this world for once. Because I don't think the people of Colombia would be very happy knowing that 2 million went to them while they can't eat.
You know, I think a lot of them know, and they're voicing their opinions on Twitter and their outrage on X, rather, whatever. I'm not using it, so.
Yeah, sorry, Elon Musk. No one's calling it X. Everyone's still calling it Twitter.
But no, they know. They know. I don't know if everyone knows, but they know enough, and there is outrage, and they're not happy, and understandably so. Moving on to the actual itinerary and what they were up to in those 4 days. It comes as no surprise that this was yet another Meghan Markle fashion show. It really was. I was appalled to see that she changed her outfit 3 times in the first day alone.
Jeez.
With each outfit really degrading in terms of appropriateness.
Wow.
It really stood out because the vice president didn't do it.
Yeah, so everyone else was just in their same clothes.
Well, Harry changed because obviously she made him change with her.
Of
But
course.
yeah, they went from one event to the first one where she was actually dressed quite well, and then they went to a next event where there was some kind of a performance with school children, of course, using children.
Of course.
And she was dressed in basically what I would describe as a beach dress, very similar to something she wore in Nigeria. Very inappropriate for the occasion. I don't like people who say, oh, women over a certain age shouldn't be baring their legs or their shoulders. Women of any age, wear whatever you want, but make sure it's appropriate for the setting.
Yes, there's a time and place for things.
Yeah. So, I keep hearing people say, oh, women over 30 should never wear spaghetti straps. It's like, what? So I have 20 something years to wear spaghetti straps and it's over?
Yeah, those are stupid rules.
That's just silly. So I'm not saying that, just the setting, just like in Nigeria, she went to school in a naked dress. That's inappropriate. And it's funny because I saw a photo, I don't know if I can find it again, of the vice president giving Meghan the side eye because she's wearing this really inappropriate dress.
Yeah.
In very much the same way that girls in Nigeria in their school gave her the side eye, like, what are you wearing? So, yeah, she just kept changing. And I noticed she really had to be at the center of every photo.
Yes.
It's her thing.
It is totally down her alley because what's the point if she doesn't get photographed?
Yeah. And some people might say, well, who cares? She pays for her own clothes. I have here actually an article detailing just on the first day alone, she wore 72,000 pounds worth of clothing. I don't know if it's actually just clothing and also jewelry. I'm not too sure. There is a breakdown. I'm not going to go through it. It's like, 600 for a vest, 500 for her pants. Okay, you can argue. I think her jewelry is included.
Oh,
I just saw now in the article.
I was going to say, how can...
Yeah,
that... Like, not that I know how expensive clothes can get, but that 72,000 for clothes sounds ridiculous in itself.
So yeah, no, the jewelry is included, and a lot of it, she's obviously had for years. Some of them are hand-me-downs, from Princess Diana's collection.
Of
But-
course.
But my point is, yes, it's her money, or I should rather say it's probably used as an expense claimed for Invictus and Archwell, because Archwell is basically weaseling itself into every single event here.
Yeah.
And Invictus, they actually organize an Invictus event as well, which is a tax write-off.
Of course. We can claim that, and we can claim that.
Yeah, why don't you claim security?
Yeah. Why don't you pay for the trip instead of the people of Colombia? How about that?
Yeah. Because, it just occurred to me, it's not just about the money and not having to pay for security. It's about feeling important.
Yeah.
It's about getting that, we're getting state-funded armies following us.
That's all it's about for her. I mean, it's almost like the security in Colombia is like, see the UK? See? Home turf? Yeah. They actually care about our security.
Yeah. But I suppose the point I'm trying to make is, whether she paid for it, whether it's claimed as an expense, don't lie and say that this trip is for humanitarianism. And I know it's never going to happen, but if she were honest about how much she loved clothes and fashion and how much she wanted to advertise it and merch and all that, I really don't think people would have as much of a problem. It's just that she's clearly merching, clearly showing off, clearly flexing, which is the same thing as showing off, and pretending that she is a humanitarian, while on her one wrist, she has more money, more jewels, more finery than most of the people in Colombia will ever see. That's just what leaves a very bad taste in my mouth.
That's always the way it works. Even when she went to that school in I forget where it was, but it was Harlem, right? And she's wearing like all this jewelry, and it's like, what are you doing?
Yep.
Dress for the occasion. So she's going to wear a freaking beach dress to a performance, but then she's going to wear every jewel in her closet to Harlem.
And to a homeless shelter for pregnant women as well. That was last year.
Goodness. And you think the pregnant women in the homeless shelter aren't thinking to themselves, damn, that's a lot of jewelry.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Well, that's why she's doing it.
Yeah.
Her whole life, even her TIG blog, ever since I discovered her TIG blog and I was looking at the archives, it was so clear to me that even before Megxit, when I found out about her and I was like, people were talking about the TIG and I looked it up, it was so obvious it was a flex. She just wanted to show off. She was like, oh, I want to make this like attainable, hey, look, I have this lifestyle, but you can have it too, girl next door vibe. No. She was showing off because she went to the best hotels. She went to Michelin star restaurants and she wore designer clothes, things that are not attainable by their very definition.
Yeah. It's like, you can do this if you're as popular as me, Meghan Markle.
But it's more like, look what I've got and you don't.
Exactly. It blows my mind that Meghan thinks that's how you be a royal, by just wearing fancy things.
Yeah, that's her. That's absolutely it. You've nailed it right there. She thought being a royal was being the fanciest person in the world. That's it.
Yep.
No work, no nothing, just glamour and fanciness. Now, one of the reasons, actually, the official reasons for the trip that the vice president verbally said when Meghan and Harry were welcomed was, this whole child safety online thing that we know they've taken on completely because it's their mechanism for attaining censorship.
Yeah.
And they've really pushed this thing hard. They had a panel discussion on the first day. This is when she had that unfortunate, really, really unfortunate mishap of sweating through her clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Which, look, I'm not going to shame someone for being human, but it's, again, if you were still royal, then you would have been advised not to wear polyester satin pants, and then maybe you wouldn't have sweat through them and embarrassed yourself.
Yeah, because I can imagine the climate was a bit warm.
It was. Yeah. It wasn't too hot from my understanding, especially on that first day. People were really saying, why is she dressed like she's on the beach when it's actually, it was 20 degrees.
Right.
Which for us in Australia is winter. I'm not exaggerating.
Unfortunately, it's like, oh, it's a day that went to single digits. Oh, now this is our only day of winter. Great.
Yeah, pretty much. So it wasn't that hot, but I did look up the pants. It wasn't silk. It was polyester.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course you're going to sweat through that, especially if you're nervous or there are harsh lights on you.
Yeah.
Very, very, again, things you wouldn't do if you had advisors.
I imagine it's all the anger boiled up in her. She's just, tense everywhere and it just comes out.
Who knows? But when she was a royal, she had a whole team to make sure things like this wouldn't happen. And not to mention the pants looked like pajama pants. I mean, again, I'm not a fashionista, but even I know you don't wear elastic band pants in public. I mean, if you're going to do that, untuck your shirt, hide it.
Yeah. The thing is that she could totally have a team. The problem isn't whether or not she has a team. The problem is that she seems to be allergic to listening to anyone else. Yeah. She thinks she always knows best, which are normally, people who think like that are normally not intelligent people. So even if she had people around her going, that's not a good idea, she would probably look at them and go, I'll do what I want. Oh,
she did that. Don't get me wrong. When she had the palace advisors, she wore those blood diamond earrings. And I don't know if they full on told her not to do it, but in Valentine Lowe's book, there was discussion about them knowing that this is bad. And she didn't care. She wore them multiple times. So in that panel discussion, she said something.
Maybe your grandmother used to say it to you also. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
And I just, at that moment, you kind of, it's not that I forget, but you kind of get reminded how completely delusional, completely out of touch with reality this woman is. What was your 6-hour Netflix reality show if it wasn't completely lambasting, defaming, disparaging your families, both of them, and the royal family, the monarchy, and the UK?
Just those words opened up this whole new, like, I just had a realization. Meghan is actually mentally less mature than the children that keep getting exploited around her, because that is what you say in school, right?
Well, it's kind of how she brought it up. She was like, oh, your grandma probably told you this. For me, what stood out wasn't, I suppose, the maturity level of the sentence, but the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
How can she sit there with a straight face, or with, her Cheshire grin plastered on her face, and say that? It was just like the South by Southwest panel that she had a few months ago, sitting there talking about YouTube and bullying when her entire career has been bullying.
Exactly. Oh, I'm allowed to do it, but you're not. Meghan, that sounds like a dictatorship. Back to the maturity thing, though. The what really kind of is just ticking over in my brain is when you look at everything Meghan does and you just kind of think, would a child do this, right? Suddenly, a lot of her actions make sense. She's acting like a child, right? The whole, I'll do what I want, I don't care. There are no consequences. And then surprised when there are consequences. I'll wear what I want. I'm not going to it just seems like she is mentally stunted in her growth.
I think we've talked about this multiple times before. She and her husband they both have a very severe case of arrested development. Yeah. It is very clear. I don't think many people talk about this a lot about Meghan, but in my last video, part 5 of the Sussex Windsor files, which was the final part, I talked about how both Edward and Harry have a serious case of arrested development.
Yeah. I think we've definitely talked about Harry before. Especially when you've had a loss in the family so close as well, that is one of the effects that
potential because William's fine.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. William, pushed through it. But yeah, it just, when I think of everything Meghan's done, and I think it's a child in an adult's body. It's like, I get it now. Yep. It makes so much sense.
She pretends to be Catherine.
Yes.
This is it. Catherine clearly has such a soft spot for children. Her whole initiative and her work with, children under 5, she's really passionate about children. And it comes through when she visits them. She genuinely lights up in their company. Yeah. Even when she does walkabouts and she meets fans when there are kids, she just clings on to that. Yeah. And William has to be like, oh, don't get any ideas, So she what I think she does? And I genuinely believe this because I've been on the receiving end of this. She basically looks at what Catherine does and mimics it entirely. Yeah. So there's even a photo of her and Harry hitting bongos. Catherine and William had the exact same photo taken when they went and did their tour of the Caribbean 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Exact same photo. Meghan was dying to replicate it.
Man, I tell you what, there are genuinely people out there who need to replicate photos they see on social media, right?
Yep.
But you're on the quote unquote royal stage, right?
World stage.
World stage, right? You don't act like a child on the world stage. Again, if she had people around her advising her that she would listen to, we wouldn't be here. But children don't listen. Meghan doesn't listen.
Yep. Hey, some children listen and they're better than her.
Oh.
I also want to quickly point out, because we're really running out of time, so now I'm going to kind of just bring things up. They completely banned any media other than their own approved photographer. And what they've been doing is selling photographs to Getty Images and other distributors. You can see their watermark on it. So they are definitely financially benefiting, because you see Archwell and, you know, usually it's Backgrid, which Backgrid was there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't exclusively Backgrid. And so whatever photos we've seen come directly from Meghan and Harry. They've been approved by them, photoshopped to avoid any embarrassments of, you know, Meghan doesn't want to hear about how maybe she's getting older, which is entirely natural. But I understand how in today's world, women, how dare you age a day over 25? Oh my
gosh, it's natural. Why do we have to fight in age? Anyway, that's a topic for, we could do a whole podcast on that.
Oh my God. It's one thing to reference someone's age in terms of how they're behaving.
Yep.
But I'm talking, there are people referencing her age just purely as an insult.
Yeah. Like, oh, how dare she be over 40? It's like,
well, yeah.
What?
They called her a hag. Some people call her a hag for being 36 when she married Harry. It's like, what are you talking about? Anyways.
What about the people who get... no, I'm not going to...
Yeah, it's a big topic.
Oh boy.
It's a big topic, and I'm quite sensitive about it because it angers me.
Yeah,
but
I'm a guy. I'm not on the receiving end of that. I mean, most of the time they're like, oh, well, men get better with age. It's like, yeah,
no,
not
they don't.
Always.
Sorry. Everyone ages.
Yeah, but it should be a natural stage of life, not a, sorry, you're not 20, you don't matter anymore.
Exactly. Anyways, that was quite a segue, but I really, it's like I've noticed it a lot for Meghan in particular, and you know I don't like her, but gosh, it's like, just can we not go there? She does enough wrong things that we don't have to resort to that.
We don't have to reach for straws.
So what I was going to say was, yes, so they're controlling the media, and also there's been a lot of talk about Meghan apparently being fluent in Spanish. She's not, because she's had to listen to translations, an interpreter the whole time.
Nothing wrong with that if she didn't lie about it.
Exactly. Her PR lied about it. And I think what she did now in her last day, she gave a speech on Afro women and power, because she knows all about that. It's, the woman who literally whitewashes herself, you know, minus the bronzer, the woman who's tried to erase every single black feature of herself.
Yep.
Is talking about Afro women. And what does she know about power other than marrying men to attain it? Yeah,
that's like the... 101 how to not be credible is to marry into the power and then abuse it.
And pretend you accumulated it or attained it by your own merit.
Yeah, you took advantage of a man-child. Oh wow, like, geez, what's wrong with you?
So she gave a speech. It was very rehearsed, obviously. It was only 1 minute of Spanish, and I'll play a bit because I think I'm a non-native, obviously, Spanish speaker. I don't speak Spanish. But her accent seemed quite good. So it didn't seem like an accent she learned overnight, if that makes sense. But she is by no means fluent. And this is why I think she has been reading how people are like, oh, she's listening to an interpreter, because she says it in the speech. She says, my Spanish is not perfect. So to me, that was like a clap back to everyone saying, oh, I guess you're not fluent then. Then why put it out there?
Yeah. It's like, oh, maybe they'll believe that. Maybe they'll believe that. Nothing's sticking to the walls to stop throwing things at it. There's no wall anymore. You've been throwing so many things at it.
All right. So here's a quick listen to her accent and her Spanish.
Muy buenas tardes. Me gustaría empezar en español, porque estamos en su país, mi marido y yo, y puedo sentir este abrazo de Colombia. Entonces, gracias, muchas gracias, porque la cultura, la historia, y perdona si mi español no está perfecto, porque yo aprendí hace 20 años en Argentina.
So that's just a little excerpt. The one I watched initially didn't have translations. This one does from Daily Mail, so you can actually see what she says. I want to say, I'm not saying it's perfect. I think at one point she said yo instead of yo, which from my understanding, the J is not pronounced like that in Spanish. And she also made some gender mistakes.
Yeah.
So referring to something as male when it should be female.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying she's perfect. I'm just saying she's also saying that she's not perfect in Spanish.
Yes.
So,
although this is also the same woman that complained about learning a national anthem to a country that she was marrying into.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, oh, so you learned enough Spanish for this speech,
Yeah.
but
Couldn't learn the English.
but that's exactly it, right? It's like what we said at the very beginning. It's like, oh, I have to do a royal tour. Oh, no. And then when they're like, cool, bye, leave the royal family. Now I'm going to do royal tours.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I have to learn the national anthem. Oh, no, I'll learn Spanish for this.
Spanish, yeah.
Yeah.
She says she learned it in Argentina 20 years ago, but many people have pointed out that her accent is absolutely not Argentinian or the Argentinian branch of Spanish.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just putting it out there because I'm sure people say it in the comments.
I mean, she could have just learned it in school.
She may have. She did go to school in California.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. My point is she's not fluent. And at the end of this speech, she actually says, now I'm going to switch to English. And Zach, I'm not going to tell you what she's going to talk about because I want to see your reaction in real
boy.
time.
Oh, boy.
All right, have a listen.
I was very, very fortunate at a young age to feel as though my voice was being heard. And I think that is a luxury that a lot of young girls and women aren't often afforded. I was 11 years old, and you may know the story. I had seen a commercial that I felt was sexist, and I wrote several letters about it, and the commercial was changed.
Yeah.
Oh, they didn't believe me in the UK. They didn't believe me in the US. They don't believe me in English-speaking countries. Let's try Colombia. Maybe they'll believe me. What on earth? Oh my gosh.
Like, I feel bad because, not really, I don't really feel bad, but it's like her own, number one, it's fictional. Number one. But number two, even if it were real, is that your peak, Meghan?
That's it. That's all she's got. I read a letter one time.
Seriously? I mean, you were 11 by your own admission. Move on.
Yeah, right?
What else have you done? Usually people with these origin stories have grown up to be incredible people.
Although I will say, writing a letter at 11 years old is still more of an accomplishment than marrying into a family.
Yeah, I know. But you know how you hear about someone who's become like some amazing figure in the world.
Yeah.
And then you hear about their backstory and you go, oh, wow, they actually started really young.
Yeah.
And usually it's not them talking about it. You just find out through biographies or their family members.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't have to constantly bring it up themselves because to them, it's really not that big of a deal. It's just who they are.
It's just part of the journey. It's just how it is. But it's like, oh no, here's every little thing I've ever done because people are going to be interested in my life the same way they were interested in everyone. No.
Well, it's like, it's not every little thing I've done. It's the one thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that would be a really funny point to end this. Yeah, so 4 days of absolute nothing.
Yep.
That cost Colombians apparently over $2 million. I'm sure it was worth it for the grifters.
Yep.
I'm sure they had a grand old time feeling important and changing clothes 4 times a day.
They were sweating with excitement.
Oh, yep. Let us know what you all think of this farce.
I wonder which poverty-stricken country they'll target and use for their own benefit next.
That's exactly it. You know, what's next? Who else? Where else are you going to go to exploit the people of that country who need help and who need money and who need their governments to look after them, to do their job? Do you think that the vice president is trying to use Meghan and Harry as useful idiots? I think the Sussex Windsor files, I don't know if it was part 1 or part 2. I talked about this whole concept of how Edward and Wallace, were they evil, treacherous people, or was Hitler using them as useful idiots for his own purposes? And I brought in Meghan and Harry because there's a parallel there. Are they actually destructive in their own right, or are foreign powers that have malevolent intentions towards the Commonwealth using them, whether they know it or not, to destroy the Commonwealth? I think both can be true, by the way, and I've said that in those videos. I think Meghan and Harry are evil and destructive, and I think they're also being used by external forces that want to bolster their own agenda. But in this instance, yeah, I think perhaps both are true again.
Yeah. I mean, Meghan and Harry certainly would their egos are too big to turn down an opportunity like that. So even if they found out about that later, I don't think they would care.
No, they wouldn't care. I mean, this is the feeling I get with Meghan every time I see her at the Invictus Games or these fake tours now that they've suddenly started doing. She wears so many clothes, in my opinion, because it's all bottled up. She never goes out into these public events. She's never on the red carpet. She's never invited anywhere. And so she's just dying to get dressed up and get photographed.
Yeah.
And that's why, in my opinion, she changes clothing so many times a day and it's all extravagant and expensive.
Because that's the only thing she ever cares about is being seen in her fancy outfits. And when she's not being seen, she might as well not exist.
Pretty much. So that's all we have to say. It might be a bit of a longer episode, but a lot packed in. We'll see what I do with editing. And we'll see you in the next one.
We'll see you then. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.